morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome back to another Sandbox video lesson here at City View Church. My name is Pastor David, and I am so grateful that you guys are back this week. And today I am super excited because we are going to be starting a new video series on one of the most incredible biblical characters. He had such a phenomenal life, the Bible actually has a book named after him. And his name was Daniel. The Bible tells us about a man named Daniel. He and his 3 friends lived in Israel and all had great lives. In fact, they lived in the palace, and they were strong, handsome, and intelligent. But one day, the Babylonian army attacked Israel and carried Daniel and his friends off to be servants to the Babylonian king. There in Babylon, they would be taught the ways and the customs of the Babylonians. But there was a problem. Some of the food the Babylonians ate was prohibited by God's law. That means it was not allowed by God's law. Even though Daniel and his friends wanted to eat the food, they decided they would obey God instead. Daniel spoke with their teacher. He explained that they would not eat the food prohibited by God's law. They might be living in Babylon, but they are still men of God. He offered a test to prove that obeying God is always best. He said, "For 10 days we will eat only vegetables and water, while your men eat the prohibited food. At the end of the test, you will see why it is best to obey God." And for 10 days, that's exactly what they did. They stayed away from the prohibited food, ate only vegetables, and drank only water. At the end of the 10 days, Daniel and his crew looked happier and healthier than the men who had eaten the prohibited food. They had demonstrated that obeying God is always the best thing to do. And that is the story of Daniel and his friends. What a beautiful story. Daniel and his friends were taken from their home by force, and they had to live in a faraway land they probably didn't want to be. And while they were in Babylon, they were taught the customs and the ways of life of the Babylonian people. But some of the things they did were not okay according to God's law. What a difficult situation for them to be in. But they decided to stand up for what is right. This right here is what Daniel and his friend's heart looked like. God inside, full of life and full of light coming out of their heart. But some of the things the Babylonians wanted them to do looked more like this. With darkness and going against God's law, Daniel and his friends said, "No way, Jose. We want our hearts to be full of God and love and life. And we are not going to sin." And that actually worked out pretty well for them. They spent 10 days eating only water and vegetables, while the Babylonians ate the food that you're not supposed to eat. And at the end of those 10 days, Daniel and his friends were happier and healthier than everybody else. Not because of the food, but because of God. Kids, in life, we are going to constantly come across people who want us to do things that we know are wrong. And in those moments, it is so important for us to be prepared
and ready. We must always be praying and reading our Bible and connecting with God in our hearts, connecting with God in our minds, so that when those times come, we can respond the same way Daniel and his friends responded. When someone wants you to do something you know is wrong, you tell them no, because I love God too much to do the wrong thing. And that is always the best response that we can give anybody. So kids, take your fish fins like this, fish swimming around in the water, and take those fins, take the fins and put them together like this, and close your hands, and close your hearts, close your eyes and open your hearts and your minds, and we'll pray out today's Bible Sandbox video in prayer. Dear God, thank you for the Bible. Thank you for Daniel and his friends. Thank you for delicious vegetables and healthy water. You are a good God and you love us. Help us to always make the right decision. Whenever people want us to do something we know is wrong, help us for our hearts to be strong and firm in you. We thank you for your love, and we love you, God. And all God's Sandbox children said, Amen.